Hi, welcome to learnhowtogarden.com. Today's film is an answer to the question, what is pricking out? And it's one of the fundamental techniques of growing our own flowers or vegetables. If you're not subscribed to us at Learn How to Garden, there's a link above me right now. Just click that link, pop in an email address. You get an update every time we put up a film. You get to see the written posts we do, and you can read all about our unique gardening club at Learn How to Garden. Pricking out is the process or technique where we move seedlings from where they have been germinated into either modules or seed trays or pots where they're going to grow, and that might be their final position, or it may be that we transplant them from where they germinate to where they get bigger, and then we can plant them out from there. And the reason that we prick out, or the reasons, are twofold really. The first is that we germinate seeds normally at a warmer temperature than they need to grow. And to get that warmer temperature, we're either using the windowsills in our house, or if we have them, we'll be using propagators. But that gives us a limited amount of space. So it makes sense to germinate the seeds in the most compact containers that we can. And for instance, this is a standard size seed tray. That's what you would sow your seeds in if you were growing commercially. On the other hand, both of these are known as quarter sizes. I mean, I know they look very different, but one of these will fit 4 times into a seed tray. One of these will fit 4 times into a seed tray. So what that means is that if we sow our seeds into quarter size trays, we can get 4 times as many varieties of seeds into our propagator as if we do a whole tray. And to be honest, for instance with lettuce, if you did a whole tray like this of lettuce, you would have thousands of lettuce seedlings. So unless you're doing it commercially, that's more than you want. So the first thing is we can use a smaller container. We can use a little 3-inch pot. You know, if for instance we are growing F1 tomatoes where we may only have 6 or 8 seeds, then even these trays would be too big. What I would say is it's always a good idea within these trays to try and stick to a variety, a single variety of vegetables or flowers. For instance, you might want to do a couple of varieties of tomatoes, or you could do a couple of varieties of lettuce. But what you don't want to do, for instance, would be, let's say, take a small tray like this and you would put tomatoes in part of it and then chilies or peppers in another part. The tomatoes can germinate in as quick as 7 days. The chilies will take up to 28 days, 4 times as long. So try and keep them separate. Once they are germinated, we can reduce the temperature quite dramatically. Now, these lettuce seedlings have germinated in the last 2 to 3 days, and as you can see, they're quite small, and all they're showing at the moment are their seed leaves. That's the very first 2 leaves that each seed produces. Interestingly, these lettuce are over 2 weeks old, and they probably should have been pricked out about a week ago. But what it does show you, I'll just take one of these out, is that they still only have their first 2 seed leaves. All that's happened is the leaves have got slightly bigger, and we've started to get some elongation in the stem. You can prick out your seedlings when they're as tiny as this, but there's still a lot of germination taking place in there. So I probably want to leave this another 2 or 3 days. These here we need to prick out now. And the most important thing you need for pricking out is called a dibber. Most of these are plastic, you can get some quite nice metal ones. This one is actually one that was made for me years ago. It's just turned. And what it is, it's a piece of wood that's got a blunt round end on, and then it tapers up so it gets slightly thicker. And what we can prick out into would either be a seed tray, or my preference are module trays. And the reason I prefer module trays is that we're going to grow individual plants in each one of these modules. The other thing is that module trays tend to have, if you were to put your finger along the edge of this module, they have corrugations, and what that does, the corrugations in the square module stop the roots going round and round. The roots then are encouraged to grow down to fill that module, so you get a really nice strong plant. So the first thing you need to do is to fill this module tray with some compost. In my case, I just use my chosen variety of multi-purpose compost, and rub it between your hands so that it gets rid of any large bumps, and it also means you can remove any parts of the compost that are too big and aren't going to be particularly good for growing. So we just fill the tray. See, there's another piece of non-composted material. Once the tray is full, tap it gently a couple of times, and that just settles the compost, and then go over it again to top up so that we are level with the top of the tray. Take your dibber, holding just the leaves of the seedlings, we remove those seedlings from the seed tray. Don't pull them. If you pull them, you'll just snap off the seedling root, and it's important to keep as much of this root intact as possible. Take your dibber, work it round to create a hole in your compost. Pop your seedling in so that the seedling is sitting in the compost quite close to the underneath of those first two leaves. And what that does, and the seedling, you know, that the stem won't rot off, it gives you a much stronger plant when we come to plant out. And for some specific vegetables, like tomatoes, by dropping them deeper in, it means that you get more roots along the stem. It also works with brassicas. Now notice, by being very careful, as we've pricked this out, a lot of those tiny roots on the seedling are still holding on to the compost, and that's what we want to do. If we can keep some of that compost, all the better. And it's a matter of just going through and treat these gently. They're babies, you know, these are very delicate. And like all things, you know, the more delicately you treat them, the stronger and the better your plants will be. And you just continue to do this until you've either filled your module tray or you have enough seedlings for your own use. This particular variety of lettuce, it's a mixture of romaine lettuce from Seeds of Italy, and what's great about it is that one packet will give me 3 or 4 different types of romaine lettuce. And the great thing about romaine lettuce is that if you grow it at home, one, you can harvest it by picking the outside leaves over a long period. 2, it will stand once it's mature much better than some of the soft butterhead lettuces. It has a great taste, and it's also quite useful to cook with. So we just keep doing this until we've filled up the tray. But like I say, if you can get these seedlings with the compost on, it shows that the roots, the minute feeding roots that you can't see with the naked eye, are already doing their job. you don't have a dibber, obviously you could use a pencil, you could use a pen, but they're quite simple things, but I get a quiet joy out of using this dibber. It's probably over 30 years old now. It's made out of laburnum. That's an unusual wood for you. We just keep going until the tray is filled up. Once your tray is full of seedlings, you water these in with a fine rose on a watering can. And the reason you water them now is that settles the soil around those fine roots. Once you've watered them the first time, don't be tempted to then water them continuously. Overwatering seedlings at this stage is one of the quickest ways to kill them, but they do need a good watering now to actually settle the roots in. You can at this point suffer from something called damping off, and that's where you get a fungus on the surface of the actual compost between the compost and the plant. And we used to at one point water that with a copper sulfate solution, which we no longer can. So damping off is a problem you could get if you have too much water. If you water too often, that does encourage it. The other thing is that seedlings at this stage are absolutely manna from heaven for slugs. So, you've got to keep an eye out for slugs and snails at this point. And the commonest place that they will actually be is underneath the tray between the modules. So if you actually notice any of them have been eaten off, the first thing I would suggest is that you pick them up carefully and look underneath for any slugs. If you do use slug pellets, and obviously it's one of the times that they're not likely to come into contact with wildlife, you could just put 1 or 2 organic slug pellets on the top of your seed tray, and that will protect them. These seedlings now, rather than going back into the propagator, will either go into a cold frame or a cool greenhouse, or if you don't have either of those, you could actually put them outside somewhere sheltered with a piece of fleece over the top. And then we just leave those to actually get stronger. Once the roots have filled up the modules, which could be 3 to 4 weeks, then they'll be perfect to plant out. And that's how to prick out any vegetables or flowers. There are certain things that will not prick out. For instance, the long-rooted vegetables like carrots, parsnips, salsify, scorzonera, Hamburg parsley, which is the sort of one you grow for the root, they do not prick out. You've either got to sow those using a technique which uses long modules, or you sow those straight into the ground. If you prick those out, you'll actually either break off the root or you'll just get them to fork. And you'll only know at the end of the season when you've actually, pricked out a load of parsnips and you actually achieved nothing for the table. So that is one of the basic techniques of gardening, and that's called pricking out.